Occasionally you get these games where you're the highest MMR player in your team, and often the advice that people give you is, oh, pick a carry or a mid laner and you'll just win the game because you're a better player. But the reality of it is this game was I was playing support, it was ranked roles, so I couldn't go play a mid hero. And I'm a position 5 almost solo support as a matter of fact, because this Venomancer pretty much bought 2 observer wards in a 55-minute game and bought no sentries or detection or any help whatsoever. He didn't even buy smokes, nothing, right? He farmed like 200 last hits or whatever. He's pretty much a second offlane hero at this point. And you end up seeing disasters even striking again. And this is a really good replay because it shows you how realistic your ranked matches can end up being. And in a really bad scenario, even my carry is disconnected for the first 2.5 minutes. He ends up coming back to the lane, level 1, while the enemy offlaners are both level 2. Straight away, the first thing that I end up doing is buying a stick and flying it out. And the other apparent thing you'll end up seeing is I end up cutting down this tree. I noticed quite quickly that the enemy laners have spells that are very good when our heroes are standing together, but also not standing too close to anti-mage. And this is relatively decent cutting down this tree, and it's somewhat useful. But what I end up needing to do in this lane is allow anti-mage to catch back up. As well as this, I noticed that players that are around this MMR, if you leave them solo in a lane, they won't be able to win that easily. But I end up pulling the creeps. What you'll end up noticing is this Undying never plays aggressive in lane, and it's pretty much very passive. I even missed a double pull, and this replay is far from perfect. I did not play a perfect game by any means. And the Witch Doctor goes bottom, and when the Witch Doctor leaves the lane, Undying just plays super passive under his tower. He has level 2 Tombstone, but he never used it. He's full mana and has Arcane Boot. And I just take advantage of the fact that this Undying is playing super passive and just focus on stacking and pulling. I'm not going to help other lanes because my mid laner is not harassing that much or doing that much to get kill potential in lane. And in turn, I end up getting level 6 pretty decent without a Tome of Knowledge. And straight away, once I'm level 6, I know we can't kill top. We're not able to kill Undying, but the mistake I make here is I show myself into the creep wave. And Wind Ranger is even showing her. So there's 4 heroes shown bottom on our team. So the enemy should just back off at this point. The Ursa is pretty smart. He's gone into his jungle and started farming. So is the Monkey King. But at this point, you end up seeing that I end up catching Dazzle here, which is totally out of position, and getting a kill with Finger. At this point, the Doom on my team flamed me for using Finger, which is pretty funny because you'll end up seeing what happens over the next 5 minutes or so. We end up just taking this tower and getting a couple of kills, but in turn again I place an observer ward up near their shrine. Venomancer wards even down to get vision on the high ground, so it's hard for the enemy to contest into this when they have all melee cores. So here's a nice little trick. So I end up using the courier to give vision into the big camp up here. You'll see the courier gives vision into this area where I'm pinging, and I end up stacking 2 camps at once. If I didn't have the courier to give vision in here, you attack this camp that's like down at this side at like 52, 53, and then this one at 55. The problem is if I hit this at 56, it doesn't stack. See, my own team is playing passive. I want to do something with Finger, which the guy who was flaming me for not using Finger or for wasting Finger, I'm now trying to use it with a smoke. Venomancer and myself go smoking. Venomancer decides I'm not going to go with line, I'm going to go off my own way. And Venomancer goes mid on his own and ends up dying using his ultimate. But in turn I end up finding Monkey King. I managed to get out here just by TPing on the high ground. And it was kind of relatively stupid. And straight away what I end up doing is using another smoke with Doom in the bottom lane to try and go on this Ursa. So what you'll end up seeing here, well, there's the smoke, which is kind of a weird place to use a smoke, but I'm walking down the bottom here while Doom is up on top. So what ends up happening is that Doom comes in first and breaks the smoke before. You should let the hero with the stun go in front with the smoke, but either way it's like important not to get tilted about these things, even though I am trying to actively do stuff. I come top, and you'll end up seeing this 18 minutes into the game, and this is the first time the enemy team is pressuring the high ground. They should have probably dived the tower there, but they didn't. And the reason why they end up playing aggressive like this position, as you'll see, is because Ursa is taking Roshan. But they should have been doing this at like 5 to 10 minutes bringing 3 heroes top and farming here, but they never did. They played super passively. It ends up being a relatively passive game, and I still haven't had a chance to use my finger, and even trying to stack cams, my teammates won't let me stack. And this Doom in particular, who was flaming me for wasting my ultimate, is sitting here with his ultimate, not using it, and buying a Radiance. So I put a ward in the enemy jungle, and this ends up being the stupidest fight in like literally the entire game. Our whole team just walks in one by one, and even myself too. But the only good thing here that was happening is Anti-Mage is doing the right thing of split pushing and taking this tower. But as you'll see, he plays too passively and farms a lot. It's like 40 minutes before he reaches his first fight, and this ends up being Ursa's Aegis that is going to go down here now. But what's really good about this is that the Wind Ranger like disengage, and I also disengage because we can't kill him the second time. Our cooldowns on our disables, and also stuff like Dazzle was coming in behind Ursa. But if you look at the levels of heroes, this Venomancer is playing really greedy, but still he's only level 9 and I'm level 12, so it's important to keep up with levels. And you look at this Undying that had pretty easy lane, he's only level 12. So people do fall behind on levels, and don't get too obsessed about like what's happening in the lanings. And the Wind Ranger is using her focus fire running in to this Ursa. But if you look at like their position right now, Doom and Wind Ranger are totally out of position. They're in a really weird place. In Undying's ultimate is over here, or sorry, his Tombstone, and Monkey King's ultimate, they're inside of it. And Wind Ranger as a result ends up just dying to Monkey King's ultimate. But if you look at the position of me, I'm over here at the edge of the ring, and Venomancer is actually in a pretty decent position too. He's over here at the edge of the ring. He walks into it for some apparent reason. Don't do this, especially near the end of the ultimate. You have to have patience to wait out the timing of it. You see the damage he took. So now the enemy team is going to push high ground with their Aegis, and Venomancer gets caught out of position straight away. He's on the low ground for whatever reason. And these small deaths and stuff are the stuff that does make you fall behind on levels, because while you are dead, you're not gaining any experience. So they dive behind the tower here, and they're just not really getting any useful kills. Kind of a waste of Aegis as well. And as you'll see, I just come in and finger this Dazzle with a stun, and I die. But what was really important is that I do save for buyback, even though I'm playing support. Meanwhile, Anti-Mage is doing split pushing, taking the enemy tier 3 tower. But it ends up being relatively stupid here. The one that you do want to focus is Dazzle in the backline, and end up just getting a really stupid kill. And they don't even go on me, because the reason why is because the enemy team want to go back and try and kill this Anti-Mage. As you see, they're coming back here. The Anti-Mage is, well, he's back in base now, but pretty much Anti-Mage ended up taking a few towers. He ended up taking a full Rax, right, a full lane and tier 3 tower. So now it's 39 minutes into the game, and the enemy team is coming to push high ground. They really want to finish out the game. Anti-Mage still has never joined a team fight. He has 1 kill, 1 death, 0 assists. And before this fight, I placed down 2 sentry wards. See this one here, and there's another one at the opposite side of the mid tier 1 tower, pretty much in the same symmetrical on both sides. And at this point, Wind Ranger gets a shackle shot on 2 heroes here, but this ends up being a place where we don't want to fight. We don't want to fight on the low ground. As you see in last fight, Venomancer died when he just stood on the low ground. That's not where you want to be against their lineup. And we have these plague wards that are on high ground, so making the enemy team commit into this, especially when they have melee heroes, is something that you don't want to go in. Like, look at Ursa, his blink dagger is going to be constantly disabled. He won't be able to blink on anyone because of Venomous Gale and also these plague wards. But coming in here straight away, this is like the dream stun. 5 heroes on Earth Spike, pretty much better than a Ravage. Okay, Anti-Mage blinked in simultaneously at the same time, and it ends up being such a good initiation that even here I could have used my Ghost Scepter, but I never did. And in turn, we end up getting a 5-man team wipe, and Witch Doctor even used his buyback to defend creeps. We pretty much got no objectives out of it, yet Anti-Mage is buying a butterfly now. And straight off of this, when the enemy team respawn, now we decide to go Roche. I'm dead at this point, so I come back into the fight. We already had Vision that I placed down before this Roshan went up, so the Vision was there ahead of time. We used Scan on the Roche Pit, which catches Monkey King, who stands in the trees often. So I'm smoked here. And if we look right, just at this point, I want to pause it for a second. So you have this tombstone here. And what's going to happen, because now I'm in vision, is a zombie is going to spawn and attack me. So there's a really small space of time where what I'm going to decide to do. But in turn, what I end up doing is stunning the Undying, then hexing the Witch Doctor. I was hoping he would cast Death Ward at that point and just cancel it immediately. But I never end up doing it. So I'm trying to burst him down here. But in turn, what ends up happening, Witch Doctor comes up on the high ground. He ends up using Death Ward, and very quickly I use Ghost Scepter here. And pretty much his Death Ward is in such a bad position that it doesn't really get any useful damage. Anti-Mage did do a really stupid blink there, and then you'll end up seeing Anti-Mage also uses Mana Void on a shallow grave target, which is pretty amazing. So Doom as well, I think, went out on Monkey King, or else he uses it pretty soon in a second. Yeah, he's going to use it here on Monkey King again, and you'll see, watch. Look, Monkey King's getting all his stacks on his passive, but Monkey King does die there regardless, which was kind of worked out. But typically you want to get the Doom out onto something like Dazzle or Witch Doctor. We're smoked here, and the enemy team is after using a smoke too. But if we look at our vision, we can end up seeing them place down this Observer Ward because it's under our sentry. And what the Venomancer does, oh look, there's a ward. I'm going to walk in and like de-ward it. Even though I pinged, you can see all the pings to not go there. This guy ends up walking in anyway. So he didn't know about this stuff. That pretty much if you place down an Observer Ward while the enemy team is smoked, you can't see the enemies around. What's important, what the Venomancer is doing, is that he's saving for buyback. So that's probably the most impactful thing he can do, even if he is making mistakes like that. So ends up being here that Ursa blinks in without ages and dies straight away. The Doom, whoa, Doom used his ultimate on Dazzle. Watch this, whoa. Okay, Dazzle ends up getting away here, and he goes onto the high ground, right, and he survives this. So I come in with an Earth Spike onto two heroes and Wind Ranger Shackle Shot at the same time. So the stuns were not like perfectly timed there, but it's still working out in this fight. A lot of damage is coming out, and the Dazzle has really good position here. And in turn, Anti-Mage blinks onto the high ground. He tries to throw out a Mana Void. This Dazzle is playing really well. But the Venomancer's like magic damage is really making them all tick down to low health. In turn, using Earth Spike on the ground to hit the Earth's at maximum range. And even the Witch Doctor is kiting here really well with his Glimmer Cape. And the enemy team's supports are playing quite well too. But the enemy cores are getting like chain stun down. We have so much stuns together. And we even end up catching the Witch Doctor here because I have Dust, because no one else is buying Detection on my team. And the enemy team take Roshan. So last time they walked into and lined up perfectly for a 5-man Earth Spike. Will they do the same thing again? You should not make the same mistake twice, especially when it was so significant in the same match. So here they stand all together, and now you see AoE Hex. I don't stack my stuns here properly, and I just throw out an Earth Spike, which only hits 2 heroes. I was hoping that I would hit Monkey King in the back, but I never did. So here's a really nice play here. So Ursa's walking up to me. He doesn't have blink usage. I use my Ghost Scepter and walk back into him. So he uses Abyssal Blade on me, which pretty much wastes the cooldown on Abyssal Blade, and he's wasting so much time on his BKB as well. That's massive for teamfight. And Wind Ranger now has her Focus Fire on her. And I'm just making sure that I get my spells out, because if Monkey King ends up using his ultimate or Undying Zombies, I pretty much can die pretty easily in fights. And I can buy back anyways, I think, at this point. So either way, that ended up being a really good initiation into team fights. And even getting kills out here. And the Doom again out on the Monkey King, which again is not ideal, but either way we end up winning this fight, and the enemy team have no buyback. So in turn we end up just pushing down mid and winning the game. So this ends up being kind of like somewhat insightful, and looking at like what your allies are doing this stuff to help the Anti-Mage catch back up in lane was really big to allow him to farm into the game. And he did play super passive and farmed for 40 minutes to catch back up, or even he was just so far ahead you end up just winning. And placing down like all the observer wards, even if you are like no one wants to help you as support, it is important to place both defensive and aggressive wards. As you see, if you went and looked at the minimap throughout the game, there was always like one observer ward in the enemy jungle. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe for more Dota content like this.